Hello and welcome to this episode of the Newsroom Chat, where we delve into the latest scoop about China from the perspectives of media insiders. I'm Wang Qiao, your host and your go-to news editor here at CGTN. Joining me today are two of my esteemed colleagues.
Hi, I'm Wei. I'm a copy editor from Malaysia.
Hi, I'm Joe, a British expat working here in Beijing, and I'm one of the international sub-editors here at CGTN.
Let's dive in.
Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi, who is also a member of the Political Bureau of the Communist Party of China Central Committee, says China will extend
visa exemptions to 6 European countries on a pilot basis.
So, China's rolling out the red carpet. What are your initial thoughts on this?
I'm fully supportive of it. Malaysia is a relatively small country. Our GDP is dependent on tourism, and having a visa-free policy with one of the biggest countries in the world is definitely beneficial for our economy.
But from the British perspective, it doesn't really have much of a bearing. China is obviously not opposed to visa-free policies for European countries, but for whatever reason, that doesn't extend to the UK. And as an expat here in China, I'd love for my family and friends to quickly come over and discover what I'd call the real China.
I feel like it's unleashing a media frenzy, really. It's like saying China's passport paradise, the inside scoop on skipping visas and soaking up adventure. I think it's evident that this isn't just about visas, right? I think it's really about fostering connections, promoting cultural exchange, and showcasing the best of what China has to offer.
Well, I think the biggest effect will be on Chinese tourism. You take Golden Week, the national holidays, the Spring Festival. There are so many Chinese tourists traveling around the world, in Europe, the Americas, and especially in Southeast Asia. So I think the biggest effect will be on Chinese tourists traveling abroad.
I think the less obvious one, but perhaps the more impactful one, will be the increase in bilateral trade. Businesses and working professionals can now travel freely between the two countries, which will in turn boost capital flow between the two countries.
The ripple effects to me are poised to be far-reaching. I mean, picture this, tourists flooding in like a stampede of pandas, businesses seizing new opportunities faster than you can say Great Wall. In terms of international relations, I think it's a subtle yet powerful gesture, really. It's not only a more amiable approach, but it really has the potential of really smoothing out diplomatic wrinkles. And let's not forget about the cherry on top. China shedding its mysterious veil and becoming the belle of the global bow, one visa at a time. I think your insights really touch on the intricate role we play in shaping narratives around China. Well, behind scenes, our editorial team doesn't just report, we analyze and interpret. Joe, you're from England. Let me ask you this. How do you believe your background influences narratives surrounding China?
In the UK, it can be so negative. The perception can be so negative. Any mention of China is almost always political. Don't get me wrong, those discussions have their place, but when they're not tempered by softer stories, it can really negatively impact someone's perspective on China, which is why I use the term real China. Take South Korea, for example. What do you think of? You think of K-dramas, K-pop, BTS. For Japan, you think of anime, cherry blossoms, great food, sushi. I'd like to see China's culture and its soft power especially get more recognition abroad, especially in Europe and the US.
Agree with Joe's experiences, but perhaps it will be more insightful if I share my experiences in the tech industry. So I feel that Chinese tech businesses are poorly understood. For instance, many experts or analysts from abroad would say that Chinese businesses are just copying ideas from international companies, but this is not the case. China actually leads in terms of number of patents filed every year, and Chinese businesses are actually very quick to adapt to market changes. And because of this, the way they operate is quite different from global businesses. So they would build upon existing ideas and focus on the implementation rather than the creation of something from scratch?
Well, as for myself, I feel that talks on China are often ridden with contradictions and often impossible dilemmas. To understand it beyond cliches requires openness and patience. And to observe it close up and meticulously, we may have to give up the grandeur of the panoramic view and resist the temptation of easy abstractions and conclusions. And with my Chinese background, I try to bring a unique blend of cultural insight and insider knowledge into the discussions. Think of it as viewing China through a lens that's part fortune cookie wisdom and part headline making scoop. It's insightful, it's engaging, and it's always on target.
I think life here is extremely convenient. Businesses here do not shy from innovation. They willingly adopt new technologies in e-commerce. And because of that, I don't have to leave my house to get everything I want.
Well, I've been here for 5 years now. Like Wei, the convenience of living in China is everything. Even though my Chinese is far from fluent, you can still live centrally, enjoy international restaurants, low living costs, cheap and easy deliveries, international events. There are, of course, negatives. Even in downtown Beijing, do I get stared at? Sometimes, yes. Have I been at a loss when someone speaks to me too quickly in Chinese? Absolutely. But for me, those things are minor when I look at the opportunities I've been given here, and possibly that wouldn't be the case if I stayed in the UK. In terms of culture shock, it has to be the food for me. I like to think I'm well-traveled, but some of the offerings here have been strange, to say the least. Chicken feet was one of the early ones that I saw that was quite strange at 7-Eleven. Another one was solid duck blood when I was trying hot pot for the first time. I also tried donkey meat, that was a bit odd. And actually a century-old egg is not as bad as it seems. But then there's another level of weirdness. Deep-fried scorpions, smelly tofu, tofu is something I can't stand. But it's also amusing to see some of the English translations on Chinese menus, especially in local restaurants. One of them I remember as 4 happy eggs. What made them happy? I have no idea. Another dish I ordered was written in Chinese as mouth-watering spicy chicken, meaning tasty. It was written in English as slobbering chicken. Not quite so appetizing.
For me, being a Malaysian, we do have a lot of cultural similarities with China. So it wasn't too much of a difference culturally for me, but perhaps the scale of things. China is massive, especially in terms of the population, geography, and the economy. Just to put it into perspective, a 2-hour drive in Malaysia would get you across 3 states. But in China, especially in Beijing, it will only take you from one corner to the city to the other.
Absolutely. Going back to what I said earlier, I think you've got to at least visit China to properly form an opinion. Otherwise, you're subject to all the negative news about the country, which at the end of the day doesn't help either culture move closer to an understanding. And moving forward, I also hope to see more of rural China because, after all, you can't meet all 1.4 billion people just in tier 1 and 2 cities. It's a huge, diverse place, and it's 100% an underrated place to live.
Even if I could turn back time, I would still pursue my career in China. And just to touch upon on the tech sector again, I'd like to add that it's really poorly understood. So I hope that, being a content producer in CGTN, I hope that I can help businesses in China to get better visibility abroad.
Well, I feel like we've touched on so many different facets about China. I really appreciate you sharing your insights with us. As we wrap up today's discussion, I guess we could say China's visa policy isn't just a piece of paper. It's the gateway to new beginnings. And narratives aren't just stories. They're mirrors reflecting our perspectives and shaping our understanding. As media insiders, our backgrounds aren't just accents. They're symphonies of perspective. So tune in and join the chorus, because with every headline, we're painting a portrait of China that's as vibrant and diverse as the people who call it home. That's it for this edition of the Newsroom Chat. I'm Wang Qiao.
I'm Joe.
And Wei.
Goodbye. Oh, guess that was really great.